So many women grow up believing that when they're ready to have a baby, it'll just happen. For Jen, it didn't. Her journey lasted 7 years, multiple rounds of IVF, and not a single embryo.
Out of all of those rounds of IVF, we did not make one single embryo.
So they turned to egg donation, and for a moment, it felt like it might finally work.
We had 4 embryos.
But even that didn't go the way they hoped.
And none of them worked.
After everything they had already been through, they were back at a decision point. Keep going the same way or change something.
Something's got to change.
This episode isn't just about not giving up. It's about knowing when to take a different path.
If you think it's time for a change, just do it.
If you're in the middle of a long, uncertain journey, this one is going to stay with you. Enjoy. So many of us grow up believing that when you're ready to have a baby, it'll just happen. And no one really prepares you for what it feels like when it doesn't happen easily. So can you tell us just a little bit about when that shift happened for you and just what came from that?
Yeah, and first, thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here to share my story and hopefully just inspire others. I think that the theme is just to keep going and not to give up. But my story started, I'll go back to when I was 14. I was diagnosed with a thyroid disorder and I stopped getting my period. So I was kind of that typical case of just going on birth control and just to mimic a period. And, I just went into my 20s and just stayed on it forever. So it kind of definitely masked probably a few problems that I had going on there, but I just went along. And I think in growing up, I think in our generation, it was the talk track for women was just about get your career. It kind of just had shifted at that point. So
Yeah.
I was laser focused on my career, and I'm in advertising, and creative. So I went to school at FIT in the city, and I was just kind of trucking along. And I always had this thing. I was I don't know. I never felt very maternal. I was always one with the animals, and I loved adoption. My husband owns a doggy daycare. We do so much fostering, and
I love it.
Dogs of my own. But for babies, I was I just never knew what to do with babies. And I was maybe I won't be a mom or something. But then as I got to 30, I met my husband, we got married, and I just there was something that just didn't sit right with me. I didn't want to close the door on it. So that is when I kind of but when we got married, I'll back up. We wanted to travel. I was just doing my thing,
Yeah.
But there was always something deep in me that I just didn't. And as a woman, our clocks are ticking, and it's just something you have to think about. But there was always something that never wanted to really shut the door on being a mom. So that is when I started my journey, probably in my mid 30s, of checking myself out. And then that is when I uncovered I had basically no eggs. My eggs were fried. So,
Oh
it
gosh.
was almost
Okay.
shocking.
So I know you were you were on kind of your track, and then when you and your husband did decide to go ahead and move forward with growing your family, did you guys immediately go to the doctor, or was it more of hey, let's just see how it goes and then we'll go? Or
so my story is a little weird. So we didn't try. I just felt something was off. I don't know. It's I don't even know where the feeling came
no, it's that
from.
intuition.
I was you know what? I'm over 35. I was reading all this stuff about your fertility kind of going off a cliff, and no one really educated me on that. Even at the gynecologist growing up, I went regularly, but they never say just let's check your AMH or all these levels I had never heard of, so I didn't know any better. And then I don't know, something just didn't feel right. And I had been hearing from women that, once you're over 35, you should just go straight to the fertility and just get checked out so you don't waste time. So me and
Mhm.
my husband like weren't didn't even like really try for long. I went literally just to get as an informational session to get
Yeah.
checked out. And we saw that basically I had diminished ovarian reserve at like
Mhm.
36, maybe I was. So yeah, it was kind of like in the moment hearing, I'm like, oh, I thought I had this time and I would just like, decide to be a mom and have it as an option. But then you realize, like, oh, it might actually not be an option. It was just such a crazy period of like information gathering on myself that
Mhm.
I wasn't really prepared for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I feel like that moment you're having to wrestle with so much information being thrown at you all at once of, hey, not only is this now no longer an option and or it's going to be incredibly difficult, but now here's all of the multiple paths that you didn't even either know existed or didn't even think were going to be something that you had to learn or worry about. And then it's deciding which path to choose and all of that. And then on top of that, I mean, I'm sure it was okay, there's IVF. And then all of a sudden, this egg donor route comes into play.
Mhm.
How did you handle all of that?
It was a crazy journey, and I I think I was really scared. So I wasn't
Yeah,
pushing it. So in this was around 2019. Of course, COVID like kind of halted things for
sure.
definitely a few months, but it was like 2019 and we went to the fertility clinic and we're finding all this out and it was like IVF is your best shot. Let's like
Hmm.
start doing egg retrievals. And I did like 4 rounds over the course of a year, and
Wow.
it almost was like I was just I was just kind of going through the motions, like seeing what happens. Like I don't know, my feelings. I was just so confused and like trying to take in all the information. And I'm like, do I want this? I was really scared because I think and I don't know, a lot of people that went through IVF didn't talk about this specific aspect,
Hmm.
but I was just getting a lot of information that might, I had old eggs, whatever I had, they're probably going to be abnormal. I was going through all these things about actually getting pregnant, but then having a baby and not having a healthy baby, I think I was grappling with at the same time because they're like, you never know if your egg is abnormal or normal. So it
Well,
was
yeah,
just
you've got abnormal, or it's higher risk of miscarriage,
yeah,
or
it's
it's
all these
higher risk of
things.
complicated pregnancy. I mean, yeah, there's a lot.
Yeah, and I was really scared. So I just started like
Yeah.
going with the motions. And out of all of those rounds of IVF, we did not make one single embryo, me and my
Oh.
husband. So it was kind of just like heartbreaking. And I don't know. I think I was just like I was suppressing all the feelings and I was just kind of just going with it. And then it
Mhm.
wasn't until like two years after I started the IVF journey that my doctor had talked about egg donation. So, and that was kind of like this turning point. But then there was a whole saga after that. So it's like,
Well, right, and I definitely wanna get into that, but before we get there, that's a little wild to me that it was, "Okay, hey, IVF's your route," and we have gone 2 years, 4 rounds, not a single embryo, and then we're just now learning about the egg donation piece?
yeah. Or surrogacy. Like we just didn't have any other conversation about any other family or adoption. Like there was no other, it was such a wild, it was kind of like, let's just keep going. I was not educated at all. A lot of my friends, I grew up in Brooklyn. I went to a small girls Catholic high school, and a lot of my friends had just had kids right out. So they were on this different path of life. And I just wasn't exposed to being an older female and having to deal with infertility. It just wasn't something that people either spoke about or that I was
Mhm.
like around. So I didn't even know about really anything about egg donation. And I remember growing up as a younger, like adult, like going to college. I used to take the train, and I used to think egg donation was like this fad way to like make money. And it was like this whole, because they used to
Yeah.
have these posters in the train. I remember I used to take the New York City subway, like from Brooklyn into the city. And I was like, oh, and they used to position it as like, there's these young girls go and donate your eggs for money for college. And it's like there were ads on the train. So
Sure.
it was such a, wild thing.
So it
Yeah.
feels, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly like you said. It kind of feels like this feels like get rich quick and
Yeah.
not
Yes.
like, and especially when you don't know anything else about it.
Yeah. And it's such a, knowing what I know now, all these years later, I'm like, it's such a beautiful gift,
Yeah.
right? It's such a beautiful thing. And it was just so misconstrued in
Hmm.
their advertising.
No, for sure. I think, I mean, you're hitting on something so important in just this idea of you weren't necessarily exposed to the idea of egg donation or, just other ways to build a family, but you didn't even know what questions to ask. You don't know what you don't know. And
Yeah.
it breaks my heart that you weren't counseled in here's your options.
Mhm. I remember now, like thinking back to all this, just sitting in the chair in the doctor's office, like I really didn't even know what to say, and they were trying to
Yeah.
explain like all. Then you get into, is it a fresh cycle? Is it a frozen? Is it an egg bank? And there's so many different paths. But I just
Mhm.
remember sitting in the doctor's office, and he drew this chart, and I had been with him for a few years at that point.
Yeah,
He's like, you can go this route and you could do a shared egg cycle. Like there were so many options, and also like options that were affordable, right? Because at that time you also have to think about financially.
absolutely.
I could have bought another house with all the money that we had invested in like IVF and all the infertility stuff. So but I remember, and I was like, oh my God, he had like all these different options. And I was like, how did we just waste all this time and to get here? But yeah,
Yeah. Okay, you kind of touched on it a little bit, but I know eventually you did decide to move forward with egg donation and you went through a shared donor cycle.
correct.
For people who don't know what that is, can you explain that? And then how did you make that decision at that time?
Yeah. So they laid out all the options, and I knew, I think, if for those that are considering this, I think it's really important just to like ground yourself in what's most important. And
Mhm.
I wanted a lot of control over like when it happened and the type of donor, which you can get from an egg bank or a fresh cycle. But I just wanted, I'm a control freak. So I was
Own
like,
it. Own it, girl.
so I wanted to do this fresh cycle where so I worked with my clinic, and to keep the cost down, we did a fresh shared cycle. So where I worked with an egg donation clinic, and we aligned on a donor, and then we worked with that donor and she went through IVF for me, and then my clinic, if she got like 16 eggs, we split them in half. So
Mhm.
my clinic took half of the eggs, and then I took half and made my embryos from them.
Right. So then technically speaking, the clinic is able to have 8 of those eggs, they freeze them and now it's, an egg bank
Correct.
situation and then you had your 8. So to let's just say
Yeah.
for your own cycles.
Correct. Yeah. And
Mhm.
it was just it really came down to my control aspect of just knowing so much about the donor, being able to ask a lot of questions. I think working with an egg donor and like an agency, and being able to have someone that was like really on my side there, and for me to ask really detailed questions about things,
Sure.
made me feel more relaxed about it and just way more comfortable. um, once once I got, once we
Mhm.
decided that we were going to do egg donation. So it was a little bit of a weird experience the first round, but we had four from the we go through the egg donation. We had four embryos. So I went through four transfers with this one donor,
Wow.
and none of them worked. I had one miscarriage through it.
I'm so
Um,
sorry.
and I think, thank you. And I think, the miscarriage, it was the second of that four
Uh-huh.
rounds of transfers. I think when I had the miscarriage, I didn't, that was almost a turning point for me because I was kind of like
Mhm.
going through the motions of like, I want to have a choice to be a mom. But I was still grappling. I'm like, is this something society, like I'm supposed to be a mom and like I'm getting older and there are all these
Sure.
things. So I was just kind of like going and I'm like, if it happens, it happens. But I think when I had the miscarriage, I was like, oh, I was a lot more upset and emotional about it than I thought. It wasn't like
Yeah.
this robotic thing. Cause I think people going through IVF, I think sometimes you have to like disassociate from, because if you get to,
Absolutely.
and you just got to keep pushing through because it's so deep and you're trying to be this human in the world, but you have this whole other life that you're dealing with, and it's so isolating sometimes. Even though I had such a support. My husband is amazing, my parents and my close friends, but
Yeah.
it's for no matter how many, you can have armies of people around you, there's always this isolating factor that
Mhm.
sits with you.
Yeah. We'll get right back to the show. But real quick, if you're dreaming of growing your family through egg donation or surrogacy, we'd love to help. At Egg Donor and Surrogate Solutions, we've spent 18 years guiding hopeful parents with compassion, expertise, and personal experience. Our team includes people who have been intended parents, surrogates, egg donors, and even nurses. So when we say we understand, we truly do. You can schedule a free 15-minute call with our team at createahappyfamily.com to get your questions answered and explore your next steps. You don't have to navigate this journey alone. We're here to walk it with you. All right, let's get back to the show. For sure. And I think, I love your honesty in this, that throughout this whole thing up until the point, you were still kind of, is this what I want?
Mhm.
Is this,
Yeah.
and I think for some people to hear that and be like, well, then just stop. It's not like that when you kind of get started on
Mhm.
this, because it really does become this roller coaster of, and now we move on to the next thing. And now we have this checkbox.
Mhm.
And you almost have to not have to, but you need something almost forced to like make you pause and really
Yeah.
assess.
Yeah. And I think it was just yeah, it becomes this weird thing. Like you're trying to be robotic about it and just keep going, but it's so
Uh-huh.
emotional. And
Yeah.
I think at the end of that first batch of donor eggs, I was like, oh my God. Like it was just this moment where I'm like, four embryos and they were great. I did all my PGT testing
Mm-hmm.
and they were genetically normal. They were pretty good embryos. And I think I was just at the end of that. I was so shocked that it didn't work. And then you go through this whole other, is there something wrong with me? Like, it's just, and I will tell you, and this could be a whole other podcast episode. When, when I realized that I had infertility issues, I mean, when you're in it, you're in it. I did clean makeup. Like I remember
Mm,
I threw out every plastic, and I remember there was this one moment where I had bought this insane, I wanted to get rid of all the plastics. I
sure.
was just like, you just go to every extreme. And I got this glass pitcher for water in my fridge and it weighed like 100 pounds. And I remember like I dropped it on the floor and it was just like one of those moments. It was like, okay, I need to take a step back. I was like, this is crazy. Like, there are
Yes.
some things that biologically, medically, like the universe just gave this to me, and this is the card I was dealt, you know? So I was like, yes, there's so many things that you can do, but it's just, you can't like make yourself so crazy like that. And I remember when the water pitcher broke, I was just like, okay, I need to like chill out for a minute. So
Sure, sure.
yeah,
But I feel like so many people can relate to that. I
yeah,
mean, you said you are a like self-proclaimed control freak,
yeah,
and it was, yes, if it's clean makeup, if it's,
yeah,
glass water pitchers, whatever,
all the
cleaning
things.
products, whatever it may be.
Yeah, and it was just and then, doing all of that throughout this process and then seeing it didn't work was
Oh.
it was just this critical point, and I took a step back and I was like, I want to keep going. So,
Mhm.
but I think at that point I needed to make a change. I was all in on the egg donation because at this point I said that is my best odds. And I weighed
Mhm.
it with, again, like, financial is such a big part of it too. And
Absolutely.
I considered surrogate and there was all these things. And I want to keep trying if I can carry a baby, which we didn't see any signs that I couldn't carry a baby at that time. So I was like, I'm just going to keep trying. So it was the timeline is so crazy because this was all over the course of 7 years. So it's been a long, really long journey.
I
Then
was going to say, because I think there's kind of this idea of, hey, I have set myself up for the best success in terms of not only are we, using all of the clean products and all of the things, but then it is this, hey, we have an egg donor. This is supposed to be like ideal. This
yeah,
is an ideal scenario.
yeah, yeah. And I just thought I was like, oh, that sounds like a pretty good ticket to having a baby, and it'll work. And then you're at the
Yeah.
end, and you're like, you did all these things, and it was just like, and then then everyone probably goes through this where it's like, was I too stressed out that round?
Mhm. Mhm.
Did I do something? And I did all of for those listening that are deep in the IVF journey, I did the McDonald's fries, I did
Yes.
pineapple court, like we did it, we did it all. I wore my sticky vibe socks, like I did everything, and I think to come out at the end, but I knew I wanted to keep going. But
Mhm.
so I was grappling at that moment with breaking up with my clinic. I had been with them for so long,
Mhm.
and I just was like, something's gotta change. And it's such a hard thing, I think, because they know so much about your history, especially going in this and it's hard to make a change. You got to get all your medical records and like,
Yeah.
but I was like, I just need maybe like a fresh start. While I was finding another clinic, I actually was in the process of trying to do another egg donor round with
Mhm.
my clinic, that the original clinic. And I was
And so just for
gonna,
clarity,
yeah,
you were working, you were going to make a switch in terms of your clinic, your doctor, and then you had also decided, okay, we're going to move forward again with a donor. Not the same donor though. You are going to find a different donor.
correct. Yes.
Okay.
So at that time, we were like, let's do a new egg donor clinic, and then let's do a new donor and let's try. Maybe it was a bad batch or we didn't sync, whatever
Sure.
it was. And I think that's the other thing I want to say is you actually, I you don't have reasons sometimes of why it doesn't work. Like we did all the tests and it just didn't work, and I
Yeah.
think that was also something that I had to wrap my head around. I'm like, I'm doing all the right things. It just, I don't know, we're not compatible. It was something. So I just chalked it up to, we weren't compatible and it wasn't meant to be. And so the one thing I knew, I was in a little bit of a dark place at that point because it had been so long and your body is just so wrecked from all the medication and
Absolutely.
everything. So I just knew that I wanted to try, but I wanted to find a clinic and an egg donation clinic, like a new fertility clinic and egg donation
Mhm.
clinic that were positive. I just wanted like positive vibes and just like to, I don't know, I just felt all this like grief and just anger and all these different like bad emotions. And I was like, whatever this next experience is for me, has to be really good. And
Yeah.
I, so then while I was trying to find a new fertility clinic, I just wanted to keep the process moving because the egg donation route, it could sometimes take long and I wanted to do a fresh cycle again. So finding a donor, working through some of the legal aspects and all the prep to get the donor and then to align on timing that the donor can do the IVF for you. It's a pretty long process. So
Yeah.
that almost took another like 8-ish months. So I'm still sitting with my original clinic at this time, and we find a donor through actually Create a Happy Family, and it was such a like beautiful experience that, and everyone was so caring. I was like, this just feels good.
Mm.
So we went and we with my original doctor,
Yeah.
they do the egg retrieval, and from that round, we got one genetically normal embryo. And I think that was another like
Wow.
blow. It was like, how did we didn't even, I don't even have four chances like I did the first donor. Now I have one
Right.
shot. So I was pretty convinced at that point that I was like, this is going to be, if it doesn't work, me and my husband were like, we're going to just travel the world and like find something else. You know, I was really prepping myself to get to that point.
Mhm.
And then at the same, so I have my embryo, it's frozen at my original clinic.
Mhm.
I find a new clinic. And what I wasn't prepared for was that it took months to get the embryo transferred. And let me tell you, this was a really hard decision also for the people deep in the IVF world listening to this. They, you know, you read a lot about if you move a frozen embryo from the best odds are that it lives in the lab that it was created in.
Sure.
So I was just going against it. I had this one embryo and I was going, I just, so my husband went to I remember I was at work that day. And when they finally, we had to go through all these hoops and things to get it transferred clinics. And I was like, I don't know, this is just not going, it just took forever. So I
Yeah.
think the timeline was, I think it almost took a year to like from when it took actually a year and a half from when I had um, the the donor. I had my one embryo to when I actually transferred it. It was like a whole year. This one embryo was just sitting on ice waiting to transfer. And it was just once I finally got it to my new clinic, every month I would go in. I had a cyst on my over. Like it was just, it was actually like the world was just not aligned with me. Like I was like, what is happening?
Yeah.
So it really took us like a year and a half with that. It just sat there and, but when, and then we put the embryo in January 22nd of 25. I'll never forget. And I was pregnant and it was just, it was like this one miracle. And I was so like nervous about it because also with the one time that I actually was pregnant with the miscarriage earlier on,
Mhm.
the other thing that I thought was so like interesting and not great about the clinic that I was at is they told me they were like, "Oh yeah, you're pregnant," but they didn't really explain like all the beta numbers to me. So
Oh,
it was
sure.
actually a very low number. So had I known what I know 7 years later, the number actually wasn't that strong. So even though it said
Uh-huh.
I was pregnant, it was leaning towards it was a chemical pregnancy and like it wasn't really gonna turn it, you know, be a viable pregnancy. But I didn't know that at the time. So it's just like the education is so create there's so much that you need to know and like I just remember so I when I was pregnant um with this last one who is now my daughter I just remember being like, what are the numbers? Because I knew at
Sure.
that time I like knew what to ask. And I couldn't believe like they were really strong. And like every couple days, I was going to get my levels checked and I couldn't believe that they were going up. Like I was in such disbelief because it was 7 years from when I started. And it was such a crazy thing. Like I still am even can't believe that I have a child. So it's like it's crazy.
Yeah. Well, I mean, again, there's so much
Yeah.
there because I hear this situation of you found your donor, but you're with all of the timeline and everything, you still ended up working with the clinic that you had your initial clinic, and it still didn't turn out like you said. It was just one embryo,
Mhm.
which is so scary.
Mhm.
And in my mind, I'm asking 1,000 questions about how and what's going on
Yeah.
and all of those things. I mean, how are you grappling with just this continued almost like, hey, and again, you kind of also said it of like, oh yeah, the clinic called and said like you're pregnant, but they're not actually telling you the full story. It almost feels like there's a lot of missing information. But again, you're with this, you don't know what to ask. You don't know
Yeah.
what you don't know.
Mhm. Yeah. And I think I think you learn definitely as you go. And
Yeah.
I would I I think I don't know, you're just like I was in this like disbelief of whatever, but I think I was just like so surprised at how when they call you and tell you, I think because there's so many people living in this world, right,
Yeah.
that are in this IVF, like it's almost like a baby factory when you walk into the clinics, and it's just so many of us just like in the door going for, your morning monitoring. And I don't know if there's just too many of us and they can't like I just wish like there was more information given to me that would like set my expectations. So when at this time it took me the 7 years of learning, but I knew to ask. I'm like, okay, what was, and this clinic was actually, I had like a little dashboard. So I would say for anyone,
Your new clinic.
yeah, my new clinic,
Mm-hmm.
I would say that actually was a really important factor. Like I had so much information in this portal
Mm-hmm.
available to me where my original clinic did not. So I saw the numbers myself. I had access to things easier, so I was able to do my own research, and I think that
Yeah.
that really helped. But yeah, it was, and I will say that um, I I was really struggling with changing things up so late in the process, but I think you have to just trust your gut and um, figure out what's most important to you. And to me, it's just I wanted to make sure that I had the best chances possible of having a healthy baby wherever the baby came from, and I wanted also this positive experience. So, and when I tell you, I did everything that I could to make this experience positive. I actually left my gynecologist because I didn't like the people in the front desk, and they were really mean. But you can't give up, because I will say there's always a way. And I think when I learned about egg donation and surrogacy, there's always a way to get a happy ending for you. And I think once you, I know it's really hard for some people like the DNA thing is hard, like there's all these different things and that are deeply personal to everyone. But I would say to not give up in your journey, because it's just I can't even believe like it's 7 years later. And I will say, when you hold that baby, however the baby comes to you, it's almost like you forget about all the war zone that you were in, right? Like for all
Sure.
those years before. It really, and I remember one person telling me that, and all the shots, and I remember my stomach was like, I just had like a minefield of just like bruises and all.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it was wild times, and it just seems like such a distant memory now.
Mm-hmm.
When I have my daughter. So
Yeah. Oh, I love that. I I keep going back to just that decision because I think you're so right. It is you ended up trusting your gut when you were deciding to make all of the, the
Mhm.
different changes, but you had invested so much and there's more. I mean, there's such a fear of you're already in this world of unknown and now you're almost choosing an unknown. How did you and again, you ultimately said you trusted your gut, but how did you decide, hey, this was worth it to me?
I I had so much doubt, but in the same time, I was like trying to override it to really trust my gut. And it's true. Like so many people, I remember listening to podcasts, so many podcasts when I was in it, right? Because you're in it, you're in it. It's just like that is
Yeah.
all you consume, right? Outside of whatever you have to do to
I
survive.
mean, it becomes your identity.
It really is. And
Yeah.
I remember hearing so many stories of it just takes one. It just and I was in such a dark place. I'm like, oh, that's never gonna be me. Like it's never gonna
Mm.
happen. And like do and then but it really does. It just takes one. And there's so many you really do have to trust your gut and figure out like those most important aspects for you to just make yourself keep going because
Mhm.
um what I learned so many years into it is there's always, a way to get there. So
Yeah. I know you said so transfer day came. It was scary. And then, but then you're also getting those numbers. At what point did maybe fear turn into hope? And maybe at what point were you able to kind of take a deep breath?
so um I go on this trip the day after my transfer, and I remember on the plane there, I said, I'm going to do everything opposite of what I did the last couple of transfers. I think at that moment, I think it was knowing that I only had this one shot. And I was like, I have to just give it to the universe to like
Yeah.
whatever is in the cards for me. And then I was like, I think I just trusting in my heart that if this didn't work, I would really take a step back and figure out what my next step was and that I would be okay. I kept telling myself like I'll find a way to be okay, whatever that is. And me and my husband had a lot of conversations about it, and whoever your partner is or whoever's standing aside beside you in the journey, it's just like really just making sure that I was okay. So I think that was like the first turning point that I'm like, I'm going to make this into a really positive experience this time because I got one shot. So I'm like, I'm going to just, try and be positive. And then when I really was able to um, kind of like just let everything go and be like, oh my God, I'm pregnant was when I graduated the fertility clinic. And it was just like that.
Absolutely.
I couldn't, it was around 7 or 8 weeks and I couldn't even believe that they were letting me free and that I wasn't going to be seeing them every like 2 days. And it was almost like
Sure.
when I remember, when the nurse called me with like my final instructions and like the discharge papers, I was like, what? You're discharging me? Like, it was just because people that are in this world and you're just like, the nurses, they are like the true heroes, like those like fertility nurse, like sitting with you in the transfers and calling you every day with instructions and what to do. But those were like the two like points. It was almost like a little stepping stone. Like I was like, I'm gonna be really
Mm.
positive. It's my last like shot for now. I was like, I'll figure it all out after. And
Yeah.
then yeah, the graduation from the fertility clinic was like it was almost like shock too because I was like, how are they letting me free? I was like, I don't know.
Well, exactly. I love this image of just like they're letting me free because yes, it had been 7 years
Yeah,
of like you said, it's your identity. You are like you're getting phone calls, you're looking at labs, you're
yeah,
learning a whole new language. I mean, going into these appointments while you're still having to like lead. It's you have like a double life going on. There's a
yeah.
lot.
It was crazy. And then I think like when you have to shift gears to learn, like I'm like, oh my god, I tried. I think there was this point when I after I graduated, I
Uh-huh.
there was this point where I was like, oh wow, I was like, now I have to figure out how to raise a human. I spent all this time figuring out just how to get a good embryo and get pregnant that
Right.
I have no idea what is next. So yeah, it was just this crazy turning point. But when I think really the positivity, it was so amazing, just like the celebration of, and I will say the sweetest part of this, and I'm going to cry, it's like even saying it, but there was this woman at Create a Happy Family that was my person there, and she kept reaching out for a really long time, checking in with me to see. Oh, and I would almost cringe every time I had to email her back because there was no update. You know, she's like, "Oh, did you do the transfer?" And it's just because by the time the embryo got transferred, and then by the time my body was ready to do the transfer, it was such a long. It was like a year and a half. It was the craziest thing. So I was like, I have good news. I'm going. And I know she was like anxiously awaiting me to be able to tell her, but I couldn't. I actually, before we were going to get on the phone today, I looked at that email and I was like, it's such a special memory.
Yeah. No, for sure. It and I again, I love this because I feel like this highlights just you said it earlier, and I mean it's so cringe, just this idea of, feeling like you're part of a baby factory, of like I'm just a number, I'm just going in, I'm just going through the motions and things like that. And I love that you have had we're able to have the experience of people genuinely invested in wanting to walk alongside you, and not just up to, okay, great, yay, you did your egg donation, okay, good luck, but like, no, we want to see it through. We
It was just such a special, like someone was so invested in, seeing it through, and it was such a journey. So to have these like almost like strangers, right? Like just like they don't know me about my personal life, they know me in this journey, and just to be able to celebrate it together was such a cool thing. And even when I graduated from the
Yeah.
fertility clinic, like all the nurses, they all stood and clapped. It was just like such special moments. So I will say, like, just finding a positive, um, like it's so important to have that like really positive support from your clinics and really trust in the people that are around you, because it makes such a difference. And I'll never know what it was about this special embryo, but I will say that the one that worked had all this like great vibe. It had really good vibes around it the whole time. So
Yes, for sure. What has, I mean, you kind of have already said, like, you can hardly even believe that, like, she's here. What has it been like just having her here after everything up to this point? How do you make sense of it all?
I don't know. It's a wild time. And she came at 37 weeks. We had a
Oh,
C
I'm sure it
section
was
just because we
wild.
were so nervous about all the things that had went on with me before. So uh, it was a really long
Okay.
time,
Yeah.
and just it was
Yeah.
so crazy. And when I think when I had her, it was like, oh my God, I have to keep this human alive now. And it was just but your gears, I think that was it was such a crazy part. It's just your gears just switch, and you just, the past is the past. And however she got here, she got here. And yeah, postpartum was a whole thing. I think I was just not prepared for, but we made it. And now we're in the thick of things here, and I make sure that I'm happily living in the chaos. So
Absolutely. Absolutely. No, you're so right. For for someone listening who might be in the middle of a long or uncertain journey, what would you want them to know?
I think to just keep going. I think to explore all your options, to ask all the questions. I think I know there was a lot of times, especially in the first couple of years, where you don't know what you don't know, and sometimes I felt afraid to ask questions to my doctor, and I think so.
Mhm.
I think it's really important to just make sure you
Mm.
feel comfortable and supported by your, especially at the clinic, because I think I would have pushed more, and I think
Mhm.
I didn't want to come off pushy, and I was just kind of like going with the motions, but I feel like I could have advocated a little more for myself at the beginning. And I was too kind of scared to speak up and say anything. So I think just being the comfortableness with your doctor, and I feel like there was a lot of times I felt dismissed, and I I I didn't like that feeling, but I kind of just kept going on. So just really trust your gut,
Mm.
and if you think it's time for a change, like just do it and just start over. And I think you just got to keep going and be positive. I think even though it's so hard, it is so hard to be positive. And there were, trust me, so many days. Most of the days I was in like a
Yeah.
dark place, but you just kind of keep your warrior in this. So it's like but just keep going.
I love that. What were the things that you were holding on to try and keep that positivity?
I love to just like work out and be outdoors. So I made sure that mentally, like that was a big thing for me. It's just like moving my body and doing that. And then I really did try and keep doing the things I loved. Like I love going to concerts, and I'm a very like social person. So I just made sure to just
Mhm.
like keep myself busy in that aspect, because I think it is easy to feel not great when you're on all the medications and stuff. And
Yeah.
I remember I was so puffy and you're hormonal and there's all these things going on. But I really did force myself to get out and be with my friend, because you can just kind of like, there were some days
Sure.
I just wanted to like rot on my couch, to be honest. And, and it's just like be in my feelings. But it really did change my perspective to have like a
Absolutely.
plan with a friend and just like force myself to keep going out, just because you don't want to, you need to surround yourself with things to feel like this is not the only thing going on in your life, so even though in your mind I think it always is, like, because it's all you're thinking about, but just making the space to just be yourself, make sure you get back to the things that you love and you keep doing them,
Yeah.
to help push you along.
Uh-huh, absolutely. Well, and again, and that's what's so great about making sure that you are surrounding yourself with a support system, whether it's, not only your partner or, your go-to, but also just your extended, your group of friends, your family, just all of that. It really is so important because yeah, you can't let the rotting win. As long as the journey was, I love that it has had such an amazing, happy ending. And I am so grateful that you have been willing to just share your story and share all of the things that you learned, the good, the bad, the ugly, just all of it. I have one last question for you, and it's a fun one. So whole time been sipping on my coffee because that is what brings me joy. And coffee and I are, well, I'm very dependent. So I always love to ask the question, what has filled your cup today? Literally or figuratively, what's been the thing to fill your cup?
It was such a little thing, but just seeing her in her cute little sleepy sack
Ah,
and wishing that I could be just like that in a crib and not going to work this morning. But it really, it did, and it was, getting to speak to you and share this story. I
absolutely.
really do. I really want to pay it forward. So
No.
I am happy to even talk individually to anyone. I think just having a
Mm,
network of people and just being really open about it, has helped me so much, because once I was like comfortable
Mhm.
to share, and I happily share that she is a beautiful donation story to anyone that asks. It just is freeing almost, I just like, you feel free. So I was so happy to get to talk to you today.
Thank you, Jennifer. It really has been such a pleasure. And I love the sleep sack moments. Oh, it's so cozy and the messed up hair. And oh, it's the best. Well, really, thank you so much. I mean, again, your journey is just there's so much strength, there's so much courage, there's so much vulnerability. And I again, I'm so grateful for you willing to
So
share.
much.
And
So excited to
happy
celebrate it.
first Mother's
Never thought it
Day
would
with
come.
your sweet girl. Oh,